Right, now, let's crack on with this afternoon. It will whiz by, I assure you, and I just want you to take in everything and be as present as you possibly can. You've been such an incredible audience. Next up, we have Detective Superintendent James Dickson Leach. Detective Superintendent Dickson Leach leads child exploitation and missing for the Metropolitan Police. Since 2016, he has led teams tackling child exploitation across London. He oversees the Met's children's strategy, ensuring child safety, trust and justice while reducing criminalisation of children in care and tackling exploitation. Please, a big round of applause for Detective Superintendent Dickson Leach.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say it's a real pleasure and an honour to be here. I'd like to thank Fatima and Gina for having me, and I do feel rather ill-equipped compared to some of the speakers who I've also seen today. It's been a great day so far, so I hope I can add to that. My name is Baz Dickson Leach, or James Dickson Leach. I go by both. I'm currently a Detective Police Inspector, but I'll be a Superintendent on Monday, taking over for the Met's Lead Responsible Officer for Missing and Exploitation. I suppose a big part of what I'm going to talk about today is where I've worked for the last main part of the years, which is in what we call the extra-familial harm space, so missing and exploitation being a large part of that. And I think it may come across, I get a lot of time to talk to my teams, and I will have a lot more time to talk to them about how we handle children in care, missing, exploited children, and the moment child abuse teams that I run. I don't get much chance to speak to such a wide range of people, so a lot of this is going to be for you non-police people, which is good, and hopefully about how we can all work better together. Because, going to be really honest, we have to look at how the climate is for a lot of our organisations. Things are happening that are going to cause us to have to shrink back on where we are. But I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't want police officers trying to be social workers or foster carers. I don't think you want police officers trying to be social workers or foster carers or doctors or anything else. So it's about everyone working together and understanding and communicating better. I've spent many years on serious case reviews, and in every single one, interagency communication and information sharing has been a major factor. So I'm going to start by talking about the adverse childhood experiences. We recognise that children in care, by being in care, will have gone through adverse childhood experiences, trauma, psychological abuse and neglect. We understand that's going to be there. The process of going into care, I'm not care experienced, but I'm certain we heard today from Shona, and I can't remember the other girl's name, sadly, but the experience itself is very powerfully traumatic in itself. We have trained a lot of our officers in trauma-informed approaches and adverse childhood experience. That training has happened. But the question we repeatedly see that doesn't get asked is why? We get told, this child's in care, they've gone missing, this child's in care, go and deal with them. Rarely do our officers ask, why is this child in care? Give me some background. We need to get better at that, and we will. But partly, for everyone else in the room, we might need that potted summary when we arrive. We might need to understand what's gone on in that child's life. Secondary to that, what we also understand is what has been happening in the picture of that child, listening to that voice of that child, and why we've been called in the first place. I'll move into what we call our reduction of criminalisation of children in care. We have launched a protocol, and we're relaunching a second version of it very shortly, following some national guidance to try and reduce, if we look at the population of care experienced children and care leavers, over half will have a police caution by the time they're 25. And despite being only, I think I've got here 1% of the population, I'm going to say, yes, more than half the children detained in young offending institutes have been through at some point in the care system. So we need to get better at that, and there's two parts to that. One I'm going to cover slightly later in the extra-familial harm space, but the bit that I want to start with, which might seem really silly, but it's where the protocol is focusing quite a lot of time, is what we heard earlier about treating these children as if they were our own. And that is what the protocol basically goes over. And what that means is, please don't call the police for a matter you wouldn't call us about for your child. We don't need to know. In fact, I say this is a system approach, but it's about personal choices by people setting policies, people following policies. In fact, if we can remove those policies, that's even better. Not every crime, and this is going to sound, we don't need to know about low-level crimes that can be handled by the home. If you call a police officer, they will assume that every non-police option has been taken. So they will assume, the saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Those response officers coming will assume that you've tried everything else before they got there, and they will apply the criminal justice sanctions. That we are working on our side of that to make sure we ask those questions, but that is the start position that will come to that. So if we can reduce the need, so it's about bravery. It's about saying, do you know what, we can handle that in-house. We can do that. And so that's about that communication. What have you tried? Why did you call police? Why did you need us to be here? And we would be wanting that everyone has that bravery to take those choices. And then it's in the protocol. It's supported by London practice and national practice. It's not out there saying you can do this. It's not someone veering off it. But it's people feeling safe and trusting to do that. And related somewhat, I'll go into children in care going missing. Similar position. From our top 3 care homes on each BCU, the Met has 12 BCUs, that's 36 care homes. The top 36 care homes in the Met generate about 10% of all our missing children reports per year. Okay? So we know that these children are going missing, and we want them to be somewhere safe. Don't get me wrong, we want them to be somewhere safe. But what we need to work on there is, again, twofold. One, make sure that we've gone through things to not report children, because every police interaction comes with a danger. For most police officers, they do not have time to build. We heard today from Tony the team, they don't have to explain themselves to these people. They don't want to explain themselves to yet another professional. The police officers dealing with them, whether it's missing or being called to a home or a foster home, are going to be dealing with that child probably for the first and last time. They're not going to get time to know them. They're not going to get time to do that. So we have to be clear in ourselves that we need to report them missing when they are missing. And that means, do we actually know where they are? Because if you know they're at their friend's house, they're not missing. If they haven't come home by curfew, but you're talking to them on the phone, would you call the police if that was your child? Back to that comment we had earlier today. I think these are areas we need to work on. This is not meant to say that police are doing everything right and it's all about that. I will say the other area in the Philomena Protocol and in reduction of children in care is making sure we have that corporate memory and those action plans, that information sharing in strategy meetings, team around child meetings, whatever they need to be, to have that information sharing so that we corporately know about the history of that child, so that we can make decisions, slow time, understanding that, but we can also plan ahead. At the moment, we are just starting to track children in care in the Met Police to actually know that they are children in care, that they've been care experienced. That wasn't previously acknowledged, it now is. So we're working towards that model. That will mean we can track that. We can say, what are our previous interactions? But bigger than that, what is the history of the child, but also what is the plan now? If this child has push and pull factors, why don't they like being in the place they are if they're running away? Why are they calling the need for police to be called? But thirdly, what can we as an agency do about that? Now, police, we will take those pull factors. If you can say, and we've heard today, there are gangs who will prey on these people. We know that. We know these children, if they're not in education, if there's time, they can be recruited online. It doesn't matter how that's happening. If they're out in those spaces and not safe, they will be vulnerable to exploitation and criminalisation. We can target those people. We need to know about them, and that is on us to do that. So that is absolutely a commitment that we're going to make, that we will relentlessly pursue the people who exploit our children. That is our job. And if we can eliminate those pull factors, and we can all work together to make that place, to go and say, I just want somewhere that feels like home, I've heard a lot today. They can feel safe where they are. We're going to reduce all of the demand, and I think that is what we're all trying to do. I suppose that leads to the final policy speech I wanted to talk about, which you heard today earlier from Superintendent Mitchell. He's around our county lines matter. Talking about exploitation, most of you may be aware, we were in Engage from HMIC for over a year for our poor response to missing children and exploitation. We have moved out of that space. However, I will say in some of there are still areas for improvement, multi-agency working being one of them. We are good at chasing perpetrators. We're not so good at prevention, and we need multi-agency help on that. In terms of, if we look at the county lines work that's been done and the work we're doing there, since November 2019, when we began a specific county lines operation, we've closed over 3,500 drugs lines, arrested 6,000 holders, and had over 7,500 charges put together. I think they used to have about a 95% early guilty plea rate as well. So they would get putting people in prison straight away for this, and we will continue to work on that basis. What we weren't so good at is the follow-up and the prevention. So what we've also done, apart from the trauma-informed approach, about 11,500 officers trained in adverse childhood experiences, adultification. We are also looking that all of our child exploitation teams will be brought into the Specialist Child Abuse Investigation status, which is a nationally accredited specialist investigator program that, if you're familiar with our internal the intrafamilial teams, they've always been held to that standard. It's a specialist child abuse standard. A lot of it does focus on specific interview techniques and so on, and investigative techniques, but a large part of it is multi-agency working and how to work together to keep these children safe. And in extrafamilial harm, in people at risk in the community, that is an area where police have a lead role. This is not an area where we can expect others to keep children safe. That is a key area where police are responsible for keeping people safe, and we commit to that. So, all in all, and I think I've gone to about my 10 minutes, but I'll see how I'm going, I would just want to sort of reaffirm what we're looking for here and what I'm asking all of you. There's a lot of call to actions today, and that would be, I've come today and I found out about lots of things I didn't know existed. My teams are here, they found out about things they didn't know existed. Talk to us, tell us about the options, reach out to your local police. I will also say there is great work going on everywhere, share that practice, but also don't assume we know what you know. Share that information as much as you can, come up with a joint plan to work for us. But no, we're there to help you where the police can help you in every way we can. Because overall, what we're all trying to do here is keep our children safe, and we've got to acknowledge that children in care, for my money, are the most vulnerable children in society, and so we've got to keep them safe. That's our key role as police, it's our key role as multi-agency. It sounds simple. I think it's anything but simple. I think it will require all of us to do a lot of work, but I think everyone in this room, at least, we've talked about signing pledges and so forth, but I think everyone in this room is on the same page. I don't feel that I'm a little bit preaching to the choir here. So what I'm saying is, you may feel you're already there, but I think we all need to do a bit more in terms of working together, reaching out, sharing information, planning together, and making these children as safe as they can be. Thank you for your time.
Some really, really important words there. Thank you so much.